Alrighty, welcome everyone. We're glad that you're able to make it today. We're going to show a quick video and then we'll start with the introductions and take the day away.
Welcome to today's session, everyone.
We are Pre-Med CC, a student-led organization established in the fall of 2021.
Our goal as an organization was to create an online program for pre-medical students at community colleges and universities, with the hope of guiding the next generation of diverse and inclusive physicians.
And while we advertise our organization as being for community college students, our events are open to anyone.
We realize that finding guidance and mentorship in a pre-med journey can be especially challenging for first-generation pre-med students,
people that lack the financial resources, or just those who do not know people in the medical field.
One of the best parts about our events is that they are virtual, so you can do it from the comfort of your own home.
We typically have events on Fridays from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and on Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 12:30 Pacific Standard Time.
If you aren't able to attend the event, all of our sessions are uploaded on our YouTube channel.
Many of our sessions will end up with a Q&A with the speakers.
Any questions that you have, you may put it in the Q&A session on Zoom, and our team members will read them and have them answer.
After you have attended our event, you can log into our website and complete the quiz, which will contain questions pertaining to our session today.
If you score 70% or higher on the quiz, you will be awarded a certificate to show that you attended our session today.
If you want to stay connected with the upcoming events or just want to tell your pre-med friends about the Pre-Med CC, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok as @PreMedCC.
Well, great.
Alrighty.
Yeah, okay, that's right. Okay, there's Alice. Okay, hi, Alice. Go ahead, Lon.
All right, so welcome to today's session, you guys. My name is Long. I'm a member of the programming team at Pre-Med CC, club that you guys just watched, and I'll introduce you guys to our beloved guests today. So the first one, Richard H. Shaw, the Dean of Admission and Financial Aid at Stanford University, has been appointed with a wealth of experience in higher education administration. He has held various positions, including Director of Admission at Yale University, Associate Director of Admissions and Records at the University of California, Berkeley, and various roles in admission and residence management at the University of Colorado Boulder. Shaw's tenure at Stanford is characterized by a deep-rooted commitment to the diversity, selected admissions, liberal arts education, and equitable access to higher education. He has held a prominent leadership role within national admission organization, and his exemplary career trajectory and active participation in national admission groups reinforce his pivotal role in shaping the landscape of higher education in the United States. That is the Dean of Admission and Financial Aid at Stanford University, and right now, it will be Dr. Alice Betty. She earned a Bachelor of Art from Hampshire College and holds a Ph.D. in Near Eastern Study from Johns Hopkins University, with a focus on archaeology and secondary concentrations in Akkadian and in Egyptology. He first joined the VPUE as a postdoctoral teaching fellow for the Introduction to Humanities program in 2007, where she served on teaching teams for humans and machines, world archaeology, and global heritage. And inventing classics, Alice joined advising in 2011 and served as the academic director in Wilbur Hall, director of pre-major advising, and director of the Stanford Newcomer Guide program. She is currently the Undergrad Advising Director and Program Coordinator for Transfer Advising. And that is for our last guest today. So I will, just take this stage.
Okay, thank you so much. And Alice and I have been honored to be welcomed and engaged in this program before. We were invited back, so I suppose that means that the other one went pretty well, and I really appreciate the many folks that have come in to join us today to learn a little bit about the transition to college. You know, my greatest interest in all of this has to do with the fact that you are on a journey, and you're going to be considering lots of different things, but we're really appreciative of you and Joe Ben inviting us and Long introducing us. And we'll try to give you some information and generate some questions, and hopefully some may come to mind as we speak. I'll speak first, of course, because I am, and then Alice will join afterwards, because she actually is the expert, and will actually determine what I've said wrong along here, and then get it right. But you're in a wonderful program, and it's clear to me that many of you, or most of you, because of your name, are pursuing the health sciences. That's great, or health professions, that you're interested in that. And of course, we need that desperately always. We need our health, health professions, and they serve an incredible and powerful contribution to society. And so good for you. I said earlier, before you all came on, I said, when I ask somebody what they major in, when somebody says chemistry, I start to shake. So, it's a little bit, I mean, when I think about it, it's just because I'm a humanist, more or less, and probably didn't do so well in the hard sciences. So I have great respect for the work that you're doing. It's an honorable objective, obviously, to do that. And really, while it's important that you are interested in this, and that's the nature of this program, obviously you're still engaged in search and trying to determine what it is and how you want to live the rest of your life. But you have through this program fine faculty members and folks who give you sort of the insights as to what it's like to pursue these professional degrees. And that's really what you're doing. This is along the pathway, but you have a ways to go if you're gonna pursue these things. So Alice, as I said, is one of she's the expert and is a mentor to our transfer students and knows them better than anybody on the campus, I think, and plays an incredibly important role. And of course, she comes from the academy, so she is the academy, and that's all very positive. Some of you will apply to Stanford, I'm sure, or you're thinking about it. And early conversation said there's a lot of anxiety. Well, just let's drop the anxiety. Let's see if we can just let that go and just be open-ended about, if X doesn't work, Y will. So you have lots of different possibilities. I know anytime one thinks about making transitions from one sector to the other, sure, it provides, you're anxious about it, but at the end of the day, all will be well. As long as you keep your objectives in sight, and that you know what you want to accomplish, you can do that, and you'll have options to do that as well. So my first piece of advice, and of course this sounds like a cop-out on my part, but I don't mean it to be, but there's no absolute best place to end up. There's just so many options. I love this the US because it has, and actually internationally as well, there are many options for higher education. And of course you're making a transition from the 2-year sector to the 4-year sector. And I know you're all going to be looking around. There are amazing programs in California between the CSU and the UC systems, and they have spectacular articulation agreements. I imagine they may have come to visit with you as well. Those articulation agreements are pretty cool because they say if you do the following, and you're in a community college, and it's in concert with the articulation agreement they've established, then you're pretty much guaranteed the transition to schools if you've done well in those courses. And I would say, actually, I hate to I would say following those expectations is a good way to also prepare for applying to Stanford. In other words, the courses that Davis or UCLA or Berkeley or any number of places, Irvine, the ones they establish will probably be pretty good for meeting the expectation of the breadth requirements. And again, Alice will probably diminish that, or she might agree, but I think that's a good pathway because we're not presenting you with that course of action. But I think that's, the whole idea here is to be prepared for the transition to higher education. So I would also say, and I don't know where everybody is in this, but if you have opportunities or if you are part of honors programs in your community colleges, that's great because we know those courses are very strong. And they're also have the same intention, which is to move you on to higher education and to prepare you in the very best way possible to transition to the next number of years in your undergraduate experience. So Stanford, well, rest assured, we care deeply about you. This is one of my favorite programs. I say it over and over again. I love the students that come through it. I've actually worked with the Community College Symposium, which is one which we partner with our local school, Berkeley, and they do honors programs or honors research presentations. So we're connected in that way. But we're really going to take a broad and deep view of your candidacies if you ultimately apply to Stanford, and a holistic approach to the whole thing. You have access on the web to the transfer criteria, transfer deadlines, all of that right on the web. If you go to Stanford and you go to admission and then you go to the transfer, you're going to see that information. I just want to truly tell you that we do embrace transfers. We don't take a lot of transfers, so we don't have a large proportion, but we're not a big, in some ways relevant to CSU or UC or any number of public universities. We're pretty small. So we have a target population of students enrolling at the transfer level of about 50. That's not a lot, and yet we're really proud of those that are successful. And of course, it's competitive. I'd be a fool to say it isn't. I won't even, and that's where, and I see Long's anxiety is already starting to increase. I can see it because he's the only one I can see. But competitive is, why not? You can give it your best shot, but certainly it is, and you're competing. But at the end of the day, we see some amazing students. And what I mean is, you should know that 47% last year of the successful transfer students came from community colleges, of the students that we brought to Stanford. So that's pretty exciting. You might also know, and I know among you and between you, because community colleges serves an amazing array of students, 14% of the students last year in last year's class are veterans. And I love them because we spread this one pretty good last year. So Army, Navy, and Air Force and Marines, we got them all. And I hope, Alice, you have them under control over there. But all of them coming with a military background. We're an active member of Service to School, and again, this is a nonprofit and vet link. So for any of those that are interested in this, Stanford, you'll see Stanford's a partner. But indeed, last year's transfer class also came from 50 colleges. That's kind of stunning. So it tells you, and we're spread out over 18 states. Most are from California, for sure, but the incoming class is really pretty broadly representative of a whole bunch of perspectives. And the age range, I'm trying to capture all of you here. I'm sorry if I miss you if you're 13 years old, but the age range this year was 16.5. I don't know how that one got in there. Hope they're doing okay. And then to 40. So, breadth of everything coming in. Imagine all these people coming together as transfers and getting together and sharing all their different perspectives. It's very interesting. But I want to bring attention to this because there's no typical Stanford student. If you have some assumption or stereotype about who it is that goes to Stanford, it isn't correct, because I can't even do it. And it actually changes each year a little bit. Sometimes we have rock stars and sometimes we don't. I'm always looking for a rock star, but the reality is they come from lots of different backgrounds. And 30% of the students that came in this year are first generation, their family to go to a 4-year university. And that's pretty exciting as well. So they're going to bring with them you're going to bring with them broad, deep, and diverse life experiences and perspectives. That's why I like this crowd so much, because really it's, we get to delve into broader autobiography on a lot of levels, and it makes for an incredibly robust and interesting and compelling community. And I confess again that it's really quite fascinating. I love to hear your stories, and they play a role in the decisions we make. So as you plan for your application, if it were here, just a couple of details. March 15th. Last year I talked to this group and we were already done. The deadline had passed, and that was kind of a bummer. But for all of you, it's ahead. So March 15th is the deadline for transfer applications, and we will notify you May 15th. So so you'll have some time to consider that, and a summer to prepare, depending on if the outcome is positive or whether you choose to go to another place. I can't believe you would, but and if you tell me you're going to Cal instead of here, I don't know. That's a problem, but we'll talk about that later, perhaps offline.
Isn't rivalry week coming up in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, our game is coming up. So, and in fact, the entire Pac-12 collapsed, as you all might know if any of you are sports fans. But Cal and Stanford are still in the same Big Five group, so we're going to go take each other on, and of course we'll crush them. I'm sorry for all the Cal, if there are any Cal graduates out there, but that's my prediction. Anyway, so those are some deadline dates. Again, the process is competitive. I've said it, but you'll find we don't prescribe to absolutes. So there isn't a formula. There's nothing that there isn't some book to turn to and say, here is exactly what will get you in. So don't waste your time. You just need be the best you can be. Do the very best that you can. Obviously, if you go to, we're looking at your classes, we're looking at your grades, and we're looking at the testimony of teachers that or faculty members that are writing about you. All of that's very important. We hope you're involved in courses that are transferable. So going back to this idea of the articulation agreements, we need academic courses, and hopefully they are going to be meeting the expectations of breadth. That is, in the humanities, social sciences, and natural sciences at the introductory level, that they meet those expectations. I think one of the great challenges for students applying is that you absolutely have your major in mind, and that's okay. And especially for this group, because I think you're worried about, meeting perhaps pre-med requirements, and I understand that. So you have to be taking a sequence of courses. I'll leave this to Alice because I never want to answer this question, but each department at Stanford makes the rules around what is transferable credit. And sometimes it goes and sometimes it doesn't go, but it may mean that you have to spend, if you're admitted, you might have spent a little more time here to get through the process. The other part of this that's interesting is that often you come in with a total understanding of what you're going to do, and then you change your mind when you arrive in Willy Wonka. You don't guys know what this is, Chocolate Factory, or if any of you have seen that movie, you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, I could do this integrated major. I could go over here. I could go over there. And that's where you give Alice a lot of headaches as she tries to advise you through this. But there's going to be a lot of opportunity for you to think about. So we're looking at coursework for breadth, really, and also that most of the coursework that you accomplish is done more recently, because we're really trying to see how are you doing now, how is it, and hopefully most of it is more recent coursework, but you are required to send everything you've ever done in higher education to us. We have to have all of that information, but our emphasis is on the more recent coursework. That is, and we'll take into account, the reality that sometimes you falter if you just came out of high school and it was 15, 20 years ago. But we really need to have it all. So one of the misconceptions is I can just make a decision not to include that. Don't do that. Send all of the information, and we're going to give you a full review. Enrolling in courses here, you'll get a lot of help when you arrive and before you arrive in terms of determining how to move forward. But the reality is, we will give you really good advice, so you're prepared actually to go beyond the undergraduate program to perhaps graduate school, which many of our graduate students do. And the transfer policies are something that we're going to try to share with you as early as we can in terms of credit that we'll grant. So let's just shift for a moment and the essence of our review, and just talk a little bit about when you apply. We read all of the transfer applications, all of them, and comprehensively. We take a comprehensive. There's no chat GPT reviewing your application on this end, and I hope you're not using it too often to necessarily to write your essays. I think we're really interested in the authentic you. That is, who are you, and your responses to the questions that we ask. I come back to this idea of a holistic review. That means we've started with the academic, we see the courses, we have the recommendations, but we also are really interested in you and what your aspirations are, and we get very we approach that with I think respect for the work that you've done to apply, and then try to make the best judgments we can. I would say also, just for your anxiety, if there is some, listen. Not getting in is if that were an outcome, is not the end of the world, and it just means that it's really there are a lot of applicants, and I think that reality is just what it is. You're allowed in our application a supplemental record or a recommendation if you want one, but generally we're asking for 2 faculty members and then a college official to write some statements in your behalf, or to confer, or to verify your registration in the community college and so forth. And we look at all of that. Whatever they have to say, we pay attention to that. And then we, of course, have a lot of interest in your essays and in what you say about yourself and what your aspirations are in terms of this next step in your life. So I would encourage you to give close consideration of the questions that we ask, and then pause for a while and reflect for a while, and don't assume that there's some formula. Just be who you are and be authentic, and try to share the information in ways that represent your truth. And I think in that way, the application becomes, the best it possibly can be. And again, along the way, you also are, thinking about transferable coursework. but you're also thinking about what are your motivations for perhaps the majors, which you have some options to list. What are your motivations for the things that you've chosen? You'd be happy to know. I think so many are, and maybe we are what we call test optional. So that means you can submit scores or you don't have to submit scores. It's completely up to you. And we will continue to be for this cycle for the transfer program. When we review you, we're looking at your intellectual interest and reflecting on that. But we're also interested in, if it's pre-med, it might be reflections on why you like chemistry. I've already gotten Long telling me about chemistry, so and why he likes it so much, and then Joe Ben telling me that organic was a little rough on him. So, but the truth is, let us know a little bit about why that, the direction you want to go in, it makes sense. But you can also end up being pre-med and majoring in almost anything. If you take the right courses, it's tough. Allison will share information about that, but often students will go off and do something else, but then continue to be interested in going on to the health professions at the graduate level. So our enrolling students, or our entire applicant pool comes from a lot of different experiences, and we're reading autobiography, and it's that plays an important role. The voices matter. So just for some examples, what are our questions? Please provide a statement that addresses the reasons for transferring. Of course, that makes sense, and the objectives you hope to achieve. Another is, what piece of advice would you share with your younger self? I love that one. Describe what experience led you to this understanding. So you are where you are now. What would you have told yourself when you were young? What advice would you have given? And then, of course, Stanford, we say, is deeply a community is deeply curious and driven to learn in and outside the classroom. Our students reflect on an idea or experience that makes you genuinely excited about learning. And so this is a chance to really dive into things that academic or intellectual things that are interesting to you. So there's no formula. I'm sorry, there's no formula. There is no formula for getting in, but we take all of this into account, and then we try to make good judgments about. And we don't have articulation agreements either. So, but we try to really look at the courses you take and your trajectory in your life and who you are as a human being, and draw that all together. And really, I think we engage in a very fair and equitable review, where there are no favored nations or favored schools or favored anything, but we try to do the best we can to make really good judgments. Actually, Alice is the court on this, because she she hasn't called me, so I think maybe things are probably okay at the moment. And certainly you're still it's still exploratory. I don't care how old you are or who you are, but you're going to find this, this next stage just very exciting, and we're hopeful that is the case. The other good news about this is that we are affordable. This is a big deal. So just imagine that you can come to Stanford tuition free, room and board free, with household income of 100,000 or less, and that's pretty special. And you can come tuition free for a household income of $150,000 or less. We work really hard to try to discourage people from taking loans. We know how hard that is if you have to carry those through a good portion of your life. So this is a good deal, probably one of the best financial aid programs in the nation. So, and then I know that's attractive to anyone. So with all of that, oh gosh, I went too long. I'm going to now turn it over to, as I've said earlier, the expert, And Alice can share with you what happens after the transition, or as the transition takes its course. And I really, really appreciate all of you coming to be with us on a Friday afternoon. And I noticed the times, you came a little bit earlier. So that means that when we get done here, it's only 5, or and you can go out and do something else fun for the weekend.
So, Dean Shaw, that's actually the first question I want to nip before Dr. Petty takes over. We're getting a lot of questions about statistics. How many people applied? How many
A
people?
little bit over 3,000. We took 62.
Okay. And then also, they're asking about GPA range and all that good stuff. And
well, that's where, I mean, your more recent record has to be very good, has to be very strong. Obviously, if you think about those numbers, maybe in your early life where you stumbled, we could be a little bit more forgiving, but there's no formula. And again, it's trends in grades, it's types of courses, but the reality is your grades should be very strong.
and then the other part of it too is 100% of people that don't apply don't get in. So that rule still stands, right?
That's very true. That's exactly true. But I would say to all of the students here, just to make sure that you have the options selected in this process, and certainly apply to a number of different schools, because at the end of the day, if you land, you're going to be fine. It's going to be okay. And but you really should do your homework as it relates to schools that will meet your expectations. And there it is.
All right, Dr. Petty could take it away.
Okay, hi. I just realized that I could answer questions in the chat. So I was like, oh, I'm going to see if I can answer any of these. I'm going to hit some high points because I definitely want to leave time for all of you to ask some questions. But I want to amplify something I just heard. 100% of the people who don't apply don't get in. So, hi, my name is Alice Petty. I'm the Undergraduate Advising Director for Transfers. And I'm the primary academic advisor for our transfer student population. To clarify, I don't work for Rick. I don't work in the Office of Admissions. I work in the Office of Undergraduate Advising. So I don't typically work with prospective students. But I'm going to tell you what this looks like once you get here. And then I'm going to address a few things that I see, like related questions that I'm seeing in the chat. So first, if you want to come to Stanford and you think this is the right place for you, apply. I can't tell you how often I speak with current transfer students who say, I thought this was a long shot and I just applied, pardon my language, I just applied for the hell of it. And they, I thought I'd give it a shot, and they are here. So it's, why not you, right? And so next, transfer credit, how it works. I get a lot of questions. There's a lot in the chat, and I get a lot of outreach from people, cold outreach from people who find me online and think that I'm an admissions advisor and ask questions about what courses are transferable, or what are the best classes to take for a psychology major or something like that. So the way it works is you apply, if you are accepted to Stanford, you send us your transcripts, and our registrar, our small but mighty team of degree progress in the Office of the Registrar, will evaluate your college courses. And if a class is a cognate, that is to say, if you've taken a class which overlaps with a Stanford class by 60% or more in terms of subject matter, content, assignments, textbooks, then we will accept the units for that class. In order to earn a diploma from Stanford University, you need to earn 180 units. You need to fill the requirements for a major. You need to fill our general education requirements. Those units that you move in that are attached to the courses you're taking now, they will count towards your 180 units for degree conferral. That is not the same as course articulation, right? So I think Rick alluded to this earlier, Dean Shaw alluded to this earlier. Stanford is a great kingdom, and every department is its own independent nation state, and every department has their own rules about how you can use transfer credit towards your major. Some departments are very generous and they'll let you apply your transfer credit. And that's great if, for example, you're a sociology major at your community college and you come here to study sociology. Some departments want you to do the core requirements for your major at Stanford. And if you have a lot of redundant coursework, that's something I'll work with you and with the department, and we'll say, like, can they do this instead of this or that instead of that, so that you're not repeating things because you didn't work that hard to come here and repeat classes. So we're going to try and make it challenging and make it interesting for you, but sometimes that takes a little bit of creativity. The number of units you move in determines how many general education courses, requirement courses, which at Stanford are called ways of thinking, ways of doing, you take at Stanford. If Stanford accepts 90 units, you take 5 classes. If Stanford accepts 44, you're taking 10. So it's really just based on the number of units you move in and not on the coursework that you've taken. So, for example, I had a student transfer to Stanford several years ago who was a fine art major at her previous school. And the first general education requirement she filled was our WAY CE, which is our creative expression way. And she filled it with an art class, right? Even though she'd moved in a ton of art classes already. What else can I say? Each student that I work with is unique and has their own interests and their own challenges. There's a lot of questions in here about how to make yourself appealing or how to prepare. Honestly, the best way that you can prepare for Stanford is by being authentic, by pursuing your own intellectual interests, by building a life for yourself that reflects what is important to you and what you want to learn and who you want to be in the world. I tell people I have the best job in academic advising. I love my students are incredible. And it's not unusual for transfer students to come here thinking, I'm going to be a doctor, or I'm going to major in computer science, or I'm going to be a civil engineer. And there is so much you can do here that may not even be on your radar. So it's not unusual for people to change their minds, and that's okay. When you get into Stanford, Stanford accepts you, not a particular plan that you designed or a picture of yourself that you created. It's the opportunity is there for you to create the education that you want. In terms of pre-med opportunities or pre-med advising that I can offer right now, I think you all know what the courses are that should ideally be taken as an undergrad to make you a competitive applicant for med school. You need 2 years of chemistry, you need some biochem, you need the math, and you need the physics. If you're thinking of coming to Stanford, a big academic recommendation I can make for you is it would be nice if you had a language. Stanford has a language requirement, 1 year university level language study, reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And if you don't have that second language, then you're taking it at Stanford, and it's a 3-quarter sequence of 5 units a quarter. It's a big class. So if you have a language already, that's awesome, frees up a lot of real estate. If you don't, you can take basically any language in the world here. We have a phenomenal language center and all the usual suspects, but we also have a special language program that allows you to take a lot of less frequently offered languages as well. And those classes tend to be they're small. They're like a tutorial with an instructor and 3 or 4 students. I think that's what I wanted to hit, but I would love questions. I would love to be asked questions. Is that cool?
I'm going to tell you,
Awesome.
Alice, that my wife teaches the Lakota language.
Oh, really?
So
I did not
so
know
she
that.
usually gets two or three courses. She's from Pine Ridge. She's from
She's Pine Ridge?
South. Yep, and she's teaches that along with Native American Studies. But it's very, those special languages are really
They're
incredible.
phenomenal.
So,
We had I did not know that, Dean Shaw, but we had first, one of my all-time favorite students was from Pine Ridge, so we should talk. But the we had a student 2 years ago who came in who took Nahuatl, right?
Yeah.
Which is and we've had students who've taken Inupiaq, which is a popular one. American Sign Language is super popular. And but those special languages are phenomenal. I didn't know that. So you got questions?
Long has the
yeah.
first question.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you guys have been presenting for all the times. So I have a question. It's about honor programs. So what if my community college does not have honors program, or should I go to another one to improve my chances?
no. Really, everything we do is in context.
Yeah.
So wherever you are, that's where you are, and we don't look anywhere else. But if you had that option in a school, and some of you may be farther along, fine. We're going to understand that, and we're not looking at the honors program against somebody else. We're looking at you as an individual in the program that you're in. But absolutely not. I don't want to. Everybody's searching for the answer, but the reality is just do the very best you can where you are, and we adjust to the schools we're in and try to understand the curriculum that's available.
Thank you so much.
I have a question. This is a question about the secret sauce. What is the secret formula, the sauce to get admitted as a transfer student, and the XYZ 1, 2, 3 steps they need to take?
I'm trying to combat the secret sauce thing, so that's
Oh, I see. Yeah, you covered it at the beginning, but we're still getting that question.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
can you like
Yeah. I don't
restate that for the people that
Yeah, I think that just keep in mind we're embracing you as a human being. This isn't just about the grades. We get lots of really powerful, sometimes transcripts, and we're looking at the course content. We're looking at your aspirations, what you want to do with your life. We know in many cases your folks in this sector are non-traditional, and they're also traditional. So we try to understand where you're coming from. We look at what we call non-cognitive characteristics. So that means that's not course-based or anything else. It means what are the characteristics? Who are you, and what are the challenges you faced? And then how have you taken those on? You have some opportunity to be autobiographical, and there's no secret sauce because the breadth is so extraordinary. And often we'll see people who had a career and pursued it for a long time, and then said one day they woke up and said, you know what, I think I'm going to go back to college. I've always wanted to do this or that. That's interesting and fascinating. Or sometimes they've done something and they'll bring those talents and capabilities into their application, and we know that they may continue to pursue them if it's music or if it's something else. So, but there's no I'm sorry, this is the hardest. There have been tens of thousands of pages written on how to get in. If you go to the bookstore, don't read the books because they, I think the reality is, and both Alice and I have said the same thing. You need to be your authentic self. You don't need to sort of approach this by saying, what do you think they want to hear? But rather you should approach it with the idea that this is what I want to say. This is who I am and what I want to say, and then let it take its course. It's hard. There's no absolutes. There's no sauce. Although I like secret sauce too, but it's usually to put on my pasta instead of worrying about it on my life.
Yeah. So, Richard, does it matter what your major you want to be before you transfer? Or is it like the UC system that the number of majors admitted?
Yeah, it doesn't. I think students should pursue what they're interested in. And again, Alice, we've learned that, sometimes they discover so many other things that they think that's what they're going to be. And then by the time they get here, I've met a lot of transfers who ended up doing something completely different. And that's okay. This is an opportunity to engage in your curiosity, and you sometimes find different pathways altogether. But we don't admit by major. We admit to Stanford. Obviously, if your statement is very focused on your dreams and aspirations to be an engineer, obviously we're going to look and see, okay, how have they been progressing here in terms of moving in that direction. But we also know that if you're taking something called engineering 301 or whatever it is, it may not transfer. But if you give me good reasons or give us good reasons, because you've been doing that kind of work, or that may be what you've done in sort of in alliance with your coursework, that we'll see that as a factor among many. It's a factor among many, and if you're a poet laureate, sure, and you're interested in pursuing literature or English, that's probably probably something that would suggest that you're aligned with that. But in the transfer pool, I really believe, it's more about discovery. I think Alice has met people though that were hell bent on something, and they did it. They did it, and they went full tilt. I mean, some of the veterans I know have come in, and they knew exactly what they wanted to do, and that's where they kept their interest. So but there's no easy response to this. But we look at your interest, of course, as a factor among many.
Regarding the test score policies, I know that due to the pandemic, so Stanford has made it recently test optional, but will SAT be required to apply in fall 2025?
Yeah, we haven't made that decision. That's under advisement with our faculty. And I can't answer that, but we'll try to answer it, I think, within the next couple of months. So that everybody knows ahead of time, but they have not made that judgment, although they each year for the last several years have maintained the policy. So we'll see.
Also, is it possible to transfer from community college after a year there?
It is unlikely. Because we have so much demand, we really like to see 2 years of coursework at the community college. There might be reasons though that would make sense, and it would be perhaps and if we're the least amount of work we have at the college level, the more we look at the high school level. So if you're 1 year out of high school, and that might not have been, at the level you are performing now, we might want to see 2 years of coursework. It isn't that we haven't taken students with 1 year, but our strongest recommendation is that you apply in your second year of community college too. And you heard the numbers, so you sort of get the picture that it's pretty competitive.
Dr. Petty, do you want to address that question about the articulation?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I'm trying to field questions from the chat also.
Sure. There a lot of people are asking about articulation agreements. I get the
Mhm.
assist.org, all that stuff. Can you tell them a little bit more about that?
Stanford doesn't have articulation agreements. So, like I said, the process is that our registrar will review the class. We use a national database that provides information about courses at virtually every college and university in America. They use that. They look at the listing for that class, try to determine whether it overlaps with a Stanford course in terms of content, subject matter, textbooks used, assignments by 60% or more. If it's comparable, 60% or more, then we call that a cognate, and we accept the units. But that doesn't mean that the class is accepted as an equivalency that can be used within the major. That decision, whether the class can be applied to the major, is made by the department. And every department has their own policy and process for course articulation towards your major. I'll add, though, since this is a meeting for students who are pre-med, who are interested in going to med school, keep in mind that when you apply to med school, they're going to ask for all your transcripts also. So if you take chemistry like Gen Chem, OChem, Biochem, math, including multivariable calculus, and physics at your community college, you can send those courses to med school. You don't have to do those courses at Stanford. So, another thing that you can think about is if you're interested in going to med school, take as many of those classes as you can at your community college. And that opens up a ton of other opportunities when you transfer to a 4-year school. You don't have to wait to do those pre-med foundational courses.
Also,
This is a question. Hold on. This is a question that's come up quite a
Mhm.
bit. How could someone get help to apply for the transfer application process? This is just what I want to add. There's this place on your community college called the Transfer Center. They have a lot of resources. They have people that have worked there for a long time, and they've had people that applied to Stanford that have used them. And this is a free service that's on your campus. You don't have to go far. You don't have to pay anyone. You could walk in there, talk to them, make an appointment. There's also writing centers to help your essays. Granted, you got to start early. If you start your application on March 14th, you may not have time to go in there. But uh, there are those resources that are there. So and use them, because I know that you're going to see a couple of students that are coming on the 18th. They use their transfer centers for a lot of those resources. So, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Long.
Well, you mean it's a transfer? It's a transfer center on the community college.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Please do. They have a lot of information, and that's their role. And I think getting advice is a very good idea. And having having somebody listen and to talk about the progression of in higher education is all really good. And I'm all in. And I think, just coming back to the issue of articulation for 1 second, one thing that we find, and I just want to make sure to be very clear about it. We might take a student, and they might realize after arrival that they cannot get this done. I mean, we'd like to see students finish in 2 years, right? But we have a whole bunch of transfers that just can't pull that off because of the issues around course transferability. And we understand that, but there is a limitation. So we often have students staying an extra year, some staying a little bit longer, running out all kinds of benefits here. But we have to subscribe to the expectation of federal financial aid and the financial aid policies. And so it's not an endless funding source. So you have to be very cognizant of that when you come in, to make sure, if you used a lot of your financial aid state and federal in the first 2 years, that could run out, or it could be. But we generally see the transfer process. We're pretty generous about allowing for a third year, basically. But the students should be aware of that. They should check on it after they arrive with the financial aid officers to see where their eligibility might end.
So I know in regards to like I get C program and something regarding the major, I know it's really easy to change your majors in community colleges, but is it possible to change your major after you are admitted to Stanford?
You don't, yes. The short answer is yes. You don't declare a major before applying to Stanford, right? Stanford does not ask you to declare a major as part of your admissions process. And in fact, we do not ask you to do, you are not expected to declare a major until the end of your first year at Stanford. And even my students who come in really thinking that they're certain about what they want to do, I usually encourage them to take a quarter, at least a quarter, to get their bearings, get used to the pace, because we're on the quarter system and it moves fast, and to look around a little bit before they commit. If you're not entirely sure what you want to study, then exploration is research, and it's smart. It's smart to take a beat, to look around, to think about what you might want to do before you commit to a major. Definitely better than getting 2 years in and then being close to degree conferral and realizing you're not going where you want to go. Yeah. So, and for changing your major, it's very easy to change your major at Stanford. There are certainly, if you're using university financial aid, that is certainly a concern, because we try and move you towards degree conferral, but you can declare a major. It's like at Stanford, you can declare a major and then change your mind. You declare a major and then you drop the major and you declare another major. I work not a whole lot, because I tell my students to wait so that they don't have to do it this way, because this is a really difficult way to do it. But I definitely have had students who declared a major, realized a year in that it was a really bad fit. And then we look at the classes they have that they've done really well in and talk about their interests. And we think, we'll look at other options and think, what other majors can you use these courses for? And how might this articulate in a different major? And what do you need to do to sort of move over here? And fortunately, there's just so much that you can do here that I can usually, I can find something that's going to work. It's pretty simple.
And what about double majoring?
Yes, you can double major at Stanford. It is difficult. And when you double major at Stanford, you cannot double dip classes. So a class that counts for one major cannot count for the other, which means you're looking at a lot more units and a lot more classes, generally in the same amount of time. And I have a few students who've attempted it. I think I've got one student who's getting out of here, 2 students who are getting out with a double major. It is difficult. We also have something called a secondary major where you can double dip the classes. I've mostly had students who've attempted a double major and then they downshift one of those majors into a minor. The real challenge though with double majoring is you have to take so many classes each quarter in order to do that. And first, it's challenging schedule-wise, because often there's classes you need to take, like they're offered 1 quarter a year and you need them for one of your majors. And what if they meet at the same time, right? Like, what do you do now? It starts to get really complicated. But the other thing is, when you double major, you're taking so many courses and so many units that you can't do anything else. And this was something I saw in the chat that I really wanted to talk about. And I'm going to focus on pre-med stuff because y'all are in a pre-med society, right? there's a ton of stuff you can do that is co-curricular. There's a bunch of stuff that you can do here that doesn't happen in the classroom and which may or may not appear on your transcript, but that is enriching and valuable. And I'm talking about research. Stanford has a ton of opportunities for students to do research on campus. You can do research in the med school. You can do research at a research center. You can do research that is sociological or social or cultural, but that pertains to health outcomes. You can shadow physicians. You can become a part of the pre-med society and bring speakers to campus. You can do service. We have a ton of courses offered through the Haas Center for Public Service that have you attend class, and then you take what you've learned and you do community-based service projects. You can become a counselor at the Bridge, which is our peer-to-peer counseling service. You can become an RA and support students in the residences. You can, what are some other great pre-med things you can do? We have our Bing Overseas Studies program has a program that's offered like every other year or something, where you go to Oaxaca, Mexico, and learn about setting up a community health clinic overseas. Like, you learn about how that operates. There's so much that you can do. And I think that if you're double majoring, you really rule out the possibility of doing a lot of that co-curricular stuff. That is, and those things are, look, you can take classes at any university in the world, right? But there's a lot of stuff, that bright and shiny opportunities that are really special at Stanford. And I always try and direct my students towards those kinds of things. Those are the kinds of experiences that can change the trajectory of your life.
Yeah, I'd only add to Alice saying there's also a high percentage of our students finish the baccalaureate and get a master's degree. So something called and I'd say 30, some unbelievable number, 30% or so move from they get their baccalaureate and then are admitted to a graduate program at the master's level, and I think we have the best program in the country for that, because they're they get to stay an extra year too and do all the fun things that Alice just mentioned while they get another degree.
Yeah.
And we've had almost 40 deans of admission from medical schools, and I know all y'all are wanting to do double major to look, but it's not really going to matter. And if you can do all of that stuff and what Dr. Petty talked about, those activities, something's got to give. And if you're taking extra classes for a double major, you're not going to be able to do research. You're not going to be able to do all of those other things that Dr. Petty talked about. So, and the medical schools don't really, like, they don't even matter what major you're in, as long as you've done well.
Yeah, I would just say, and I just am so excited about what you said, because you're going to develop yourself as a human being by taking advantage of these other opportunities rather than just grinding it out in the classroom. I mean, out there helping people in Oaxaca, why not? That's an amazing experience, and that's a hands-on experience. And it's we have a famous mantra to serve the public welfare. That's what our philosophy is. That's what our mission is as an institution, and that it's going to be hard to do that if you're grinding out two majors. So
yeah, and the person that runs that Oaxaca program is the former dean of admission for Stanford Medical School. So.
I also I want to jump in because we were talking about other bright and shiny things. Stanford also has something called a cardinal quarter, which is you can take a leave of absence, step away for a quarter, and do full-time immersive service somewhere. So, for example, if you want to work in a community health clinic, or if you want to work with a community organization, or you want to do some kind of service related to your interest in the health sciences or medicine, those are phenomenal opportunities, and they are funded. So if you qualify, you can apply for funding to do that.
Can I ask a question? So how many times can I apply?
Well, you can apply twice. And then we say third is not a charm. We just that becomes. But again, it's. The question is if the decision was made the first time, it would be something would have to be quite amazing to see it reversed. So I think that when I talk to people about options, I think you may have other options. You should pursue them and not assume that there's just only one place on earth, but rather it's not so much the place as as it is what you do with your experience, what you do, the way you embrace wherever you are. And so but you could apply a second time if it weren't successful the first, but I wouldn't really recommend it necessarily.
If I were to get accepted into Stanford, would my spouse be able to live with me on campus?
Yes. Yeah, we have family housing. So yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just making a shameless plug. November 18th, we have a bunch of Stanford transfer students that are coming to speak, and one of them is married and has children. And he makes I'll let him do it. I won't. He said he said he gets to send his daughter to one of the best high schools in the country,
Yeah.
right across the street.
Yeah. There's a bunch of students asked about coterms in the chat. Not every department offers a coterm, but how it works is while you are an undergrad at Stanford, you would apply for a master's program in one of the programs that offers it. If you are accepted, you have to have 1 quarter where both records, your undergraduate record and your graduate record, are both open. And then you can either confer your undergraduate degree or leave them both open and confer them at the same time. Most of the coterminal master's degrees are 45 units. So it's at Stanford, 15 units is good progress towards degree. So 45 units is roughly 1 year of coursework. So it adds a year. It typically adds a year to your time here.
And for the application, does Stanford pay attention about clubs and being the president of the clubs? Because I'm very passionate about this, but many people, they told me that they don't want to hear about this in essays or extracurriculars.
Who is they?
The keyboard warriors.
Yeah, if it's important to you, write about it. If it's and it's especially if it if it's in a leadership position, you were able to accomplish something. One of the big mistakes people make is joining a whole bunch of stuff and just going and hanging out. And that we really are looking at singular. If you're involved in something, be involved in something you really embrace. And but all of you belong to the pre-med group probably, and that's cool. Because you're talking about and sharing with each other, but we don't discount you because you're a member of that. But I think if you do something in the community college that you really feel, you feel really strongly about and contribute to, then that may be something you certainly can write about, which is fine.
This is another question somebody wanted to ask about if you get accepted but you have to defer, will you is that possible? If you have to defer
you can defer. Yes, you can defer a year.
Yeah, I know somebody who deferred, but they were like an Olympian, so.
Yeah, well, that's what an excuse. Okay.
Again, this is another question that has come up of people that have mastery of foreign language, like if they've gone to an international high school or they graduated from a foreign country. Is that considered mastery?
Yes. Yeah. If you're, we call that a heritage speaker. If you grew up in a house in a non-English speaking household, usually what you would do if you were a transfer student is I'd talk to you and I'd be like, hey, looks like they spoke, Spanish or Cantonese in your house. You would contact the language center. They introduce you to someone who administers a placement diagnostic, which is basically someone gets on Zoom with you and you have a conversation and you explain to them, for example, in Spanish. I grew up in, Spanish is my first language. I didn't start speaking English until I went to elementary school. Or if you went to an international school and all your classes were taught in Arabic or in French, then they speak to you. If you earn a high school diploma from a school where all your classes were in French, you're going to pass that placement, that you're going to pass that diagnostic in about 20 minutes, and they're going to be like, thank you very much, you've met the requirement, right? And many students place out based on being heritage speakers. Or if they're heritage speakers but they don't read and write, I've had a few students who are who spoke Farsi in their home and they're very proficient, but their reading and writing skills are not great because they haven't spent a lot of time reading. Then there is like an accelerated version of Farsi that they can take that moves them through more quickly and that kind of acknowledges that they already have that linguistic expertise.
Again, this is a question that keeps on getting asked. What if you're an international student? Are you looked at differently applying?
No, we had a lot of a good portion of that number I gave you were international students. So we do consider international students. It's extremely competitive for international students, but the whole thing's extremely competitive. And I think in last year's class we had 4 international admits. So it's but certainly we don't exclude anybody from the opportunity to apply as a transfer.
Somebody wanted to ask also the Stanford Community College programs. If you do those, are you looked at favorably, unfavorably? How does that impact?
No, if you do the research programs or consortia, or you do the medical, I think the medical schools got some things as well. That's a factor among many. It's not it doesn't give you priority. It's, again, everything is considered in context, but certainly we would see that, and that would be just one of the things that was a piece of information that contributed to your life's experience, and that's fine. But we try, every individual has an opportunity to compete, and that's why the review in context is really important. But those programs are great. I've gone to some of the research presentations of the community college research consortium in Northern California, and they're in, and I would encourage any community college student, if you have an opportunity to engage in some level of research, that's not a bad thing. It's just a good aspect of your education.
Yeah, and I also put the link for the Stanford Community College program. There is a ton of them. There's one for aeronautical engineering. There is for social sciences. There's the medical school. Actually, the person who runs the medical school one is speaking to us in a few weeks. So yeah, but there's a ton of programs. We've put those links, and hint, most of those applications are due in January or early February. We have done a ton of stuff for summer programs, and then we have one also on the 2nd of December that's going to talk about that as well. So, yes, sorry.
I'm also a little curious about fine arts. So do people will any talk of art major come up
Yeah,
like portfolio requirements?
we actually have a art. You can apply. You can submit an art portfolio for transfers as well if you're really interested in the arts. And of course, we have very, very strong arts programs. Yeah, and it's both in music and in art. You can do an audition basically, or submit a portfolio. So, and that's true at both the first year level and the transfer level. And yes, of course, we very much are interested in students applying across the curriculum. All of that's very good, and you can major in art and be pre-med. So it's all of that's possible. But if you really want to share your own creativity, it doesn't have to do with the major as much, but they know you'll participate in the programs, perhaps, whether it be music or art, and they're judging you for your artistic ability, not whether you're going to be a major or not.
This is another question about if the dual enrollment people that are in high school that are in high school taking community college classes, did they apply as a transfer first year? Can you go a little bit about that?
Yeah. If you're still in high school taking, and we have a lot of kids that are taking community college courses, and we consider those as maybe more a little bit more advanced than other curricular courses, although are comparable to advanced placement. But you apply as a freshman. If you have not received a high school degree, you apply as a freshman. And there are a lot of special programs, of course, maybe not pertinent to this group, but a lot of schools have these running start, well, I'll use the term running start programs in the Northwest, for example. And public universities are trying to get them to run as fast as they can and take as many community colleges courses as they can. And then the publics will take those courses. We will not. We won't assign the credit to those courses. We just see them as taking advanced courses in high school. Or I think it's up to 6, maybe two courses, perhaps. We might take as many as 2.
And then some people wanted to ask about the essay questions. What's the magic way to answer the essay questions? I would first say don't use ChatGPT because there's a lot of smart people reading these. I'm pretty sure there's some detection somewhere in the yonder if they, but that's the first thing I would say. But go ahead.
Right. Be thoughtful, and write about something you care about. Be authentic. That word we've used multiple times here. Be yourself. Don't try to determine what it is you think we want to read, because that usually comes through pretty clearly. I think the goal is to sit and craft, think about crafting, what a well-crafted piece as well, so that in fact the mechanics matter too. But we're not grading the grammar, but the reality is we really just want those essays to have you tell us, if you were to respond to something, from your heart and initially the way you would respond to a friend, do that. Rather than trying to if you're all looking for sauce here, and the real secret sauce is to just be authentic and be thoughtful and craft an essay that you're proud of, and that when you read it you go, that's me. It's not ChatGPT, or it's not somebody over here consulting on how I should read, or my mother or my brother, or because what happens is a lot of people get involved in your work, and you lose yourself in that process. Everybody else is giving you the advice. It isn't that they shouldn't give you some, but it's more about you want to be really proud of what you said, and it should be you. And then otherwise, there's no sauce.
And again, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. That's good.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, and again, use your transfer center because every community college has it. You are paying for it.
Yes, I like that.
They read a lot of these essays, and they could give you that insight that that you can get from they're professionals. They do this all the time. They have hundreds of them, thousands of students to transfer every year, and use that resource that's available to you.
I can see that for a question that is really capturing my attention is that will having a few semester where I was a part-time student greatly affect my chances of getting in?
I think we just want to know why, because that would matter. If I had to go to work, I had to work for my family. I couldn't fit it all into the hours. Whatever the reasoning may be, but let us know why that particular term or whatever you had to take or had to step down in terms of full-time load. And sometimes we have transfers who have been going concurrently for some period of time, and they take a little bit longer, but they're still at it all the time, so that's fine. And then they might be in community college for 3.5 years or whatever. But again, my fear there and worry there is that if they're getting financial support from the state or feds, that could have real impact on their overall financial aid. But we've taken students who have stopped out and come back, but we just want to know why.
And for people who apply when they were in high school and they got rejected or waitlisted, does that it affect the transfer application?
No, there are a fair number of those because it's pretty hard to get in as a freshman too. So it's fine. You're in a new chapter here. When you go on to community college, that changes the formula, so to speak. We're looking at your community college work primarily, although we want every transfer student that applies to submit their high school transcript or equivalency test. That's a requirement. But we really are looking. We know that it's tough, and sometimes you don't get in the first time, and it's not unusual to see you come back and make it perhaps the second time. So it's fine.
This is again, this is people keep on asking about the replay. It's going to be on our YouTube channel, and I put the link in there, and you could even subscribe because I don't know how long the rendering will take. This is a question people are asking about if for letters of recommendation, does it have to be only professors? Can it be other faculty or other people that you worked with?
Yeah, that's a good question. It should be somebody that has had the direct relationship with you, and hopefully an academic relationship. That is and they may be a faculty member who's working with you as you do something external, but maybe in the field of study. We allow for a third rec too. So if you have an employer that you really want to support you, then you can do that. But really, we have somewhat of a preference for a faculty member or who's taught you in the classroom, and it's and at least for two of the recs, and of course the other one's is really a perfunctory one that verifies your status as a transfer student, usually an academic dean or a transfer dean or whatever. But we'd really like to get a sense of your performance in the classroom. And then the third one can be that outside person. It can be a supplemental recommendation.
Dr. Dean Shaw, can you go a little bit over people submitting their transcripts? Some people have wondering if they should wait until their fall transcripts are done. And then what about the spring transcripts and how's that done in terms of like the conditional admission and all that good stuff?
Right. No, submit your transcripts when you submit your application March 15th. They should be in because we're going to start the review right then. So send what you have. And then, of course, your courses in progress, you're listing on the application itself. You will be required to send a final transcript. And, our expectations, if we admit you to Stanford, our expectations is that your performance will be comparable to the performance that we've seen up to the point that we made the admissions decision. So you'll have to send it twice. One at the in the spring, which will probably only cover, it depends on what you have, might cover a fall quarter, a fall semester, or if you're in a quarter system, might capture the winter. But eventually you'll have to send your final transcript as well. And we review the final transcripts. So those courses, the grades in those courses matter. You've already been admitted, but if you, let's just imagine that you didn't do well, it is possible that we would rescind your admission. So keep in mind that we expect you to continue your work at a comparable level to what we've seen in sort of more recent work.
So you can't go surfing and miss class and not
Don't
turn
go
in anything.
surfing. Don't take. Yeah, that's exactly right. Or if you surf, make sure you work at night and get your coursework done. Mhm.
And does the admissions compare students from the same school?
No, everybody has a shot, and we really don't get enough. We try to get a sense of what the expectation should be, but remember, the students that are successful tend to be very successful. I mean, they've done well, or the trends show really extraordinary progression to well. And these are big schools, so we're not going to compare you to somebody over there. Each student has a shot.
This is somebody wanted to ask also, if you get rejected from undergraduate, would your chances for graduate school be affected?
No. Graduate advising works. I mean, graduate admissions is totally different. When you apply to graduate school, you're applying to a department. I mean, it's the department that would make the decision about your admissions. That's right, isn't it, Dean Shaw?
Yeah, I mean, that's correct. I mean, we have nothing to do with the graduate school.
Yeah.
But they're still going to be seeing your record.
Yeah.
So they're going to see if it's a community college, and then it's Stanford as an undergraduate, and then you apply to graduate school. All of those records will go to the graduate program, and they're going to base their judgment on that. But we don't call them up and say, "Don't take them," right? Or "Do take them," or whatever. We have no relationship to that experience, to those professional schools or graduate programs.
For the program, what if my community college has an honors program and classes, but it was not available to me because of my major? So would it hurt my chances?
No, again, don't change it. I'm sorry I brought up honors. You keep hitting me with that honors thing. So you just do whatever is the correct path for you relative to your own needs and experience. I mentioned the honors programs only to say that we've seen some strong kids from there, and it's usually the research that really is interesting. But we know every individual has a different reason to be where they are, so we don't want to try to penalize that. Grades matter, but grades matter. That's the key. Grades matter.
The other question, again, this is somebody not here. Somebody asked, they are a psychology major and not pre-med. Should they take organic chemistry to show that they could do well in that class? And
no, chemistry is not a requirement of the psychology major. And no.
No, but they want to take organic chemistry to prove that they could take a hard class just to do it, but they're not pre-med. Yeah.
No. Well, that's an admissions question. I'll let Dean Shaw take it.
Yeah, I just think I always think about college as something where you go in and can really do things and find your way to doing things that you really want to do. And sometimes you have to do them because they're expected, because you're trying to get somewhere. In graduate school, that's certainly true. But that scenario, I don't think makes any sense. You should pursue courses that make you happy, or not jump into something that would prove. Now we're not going to know it, but by the way you described it, I would go, gosh, no, don't do that.
Why would anyone take OChem if they did?
Yeah, well, Joe Ben said he didn't like that very much. So
No, it's a hard class. I mean, look, if you don't need it for your major, like why would you take it? I
yeah,
mean,
no,
it's not and risk getting a bad grade
well, and
or
also
putting yourself through it.
to impress us. That's not what we want. Students that are really, sort of enjoying their experience and doing things that, that not only in pursuit of education, but also that are fulfilling in terms of their experience. And so I agree. I mean, I think that would be silly. Now, some students, I will say, take everything and they're good at it. So, and they're enjoying it, and that's that's fine if that's what the reality is.
The other question is coming up again. Dean Shaw, can you go over the financial aid again? Because
okay, it's
and we'll post that video, but just to repeat it, because
well, it's 100,000. If you're, and again, it depends if you're independent, that's also true. But if your family is 100,000 or less, and we look at family assets, as well, then it's very conceivable that you will be able to come to Stanford with no tuition and no room and board. It's very generous. So and if the family makes $150,000 or less, with what we call standard assets, then you would come tuition free. That's a big deal. So so hopefully those are generous. And then if it goes up beyond those numbers, right, you still get a great deal of financial aid. I'm using the ones that are the headliners, but in reality, you could be in a family that's making 160, 170, 180. They're going to be aid attached to it. You should apply for need-based financial aid. And of course, as you move beyond the 100, it's incrementally changes. So if it's 110, you'll still be pretty close to meeting full need. So those are, and again, typical, what we use the term typical assets of a family. The only thing is if in fact you make that, but you own 7 homes in Northern California, then your assets are much greater, and we would take those into account.
The other question is somebody's asking about do certain groups like community colleges, community college students, veterans get preference over individuals attending a university?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the answer is yes. I think the 2-year sector we like to lean in that direction, but there are a number of transfer students who are from 4-year institutions as well. I actually think that the chemistry of those coming together actually is pretty good, pretty interesting, because they bring a lot of different perspectives. And then we have, for example, intercollegiate competing intercollegiate athletes who come in through the transfer process as well. The famous portal, we call it, so we have a few of those in there. Then we have international students from, usually they don't have a 2-year sector really, so so it's mixed, but we have we care deeply about veterans, and certainly, and we care deeply about the 2-year sector. We can't have much influence on it. We wish we could, but it's we don't. The numbers are just small overall. But for those that come here, I think they have quite an exceptional experience, and I think the community college folks feel. I think it takes maybe a little bit of time for them to adapt, but to the place, because it's different. But I think they adapt pretty quickly and then succeed at very, very high levels. Actually, Dr. Petty she works with them all the time, so she probably could tell. But we don't want her to say anything like, "Oh, and then he stumbled and fell off a cliff." So. I think they get a lot of support. Everybody gets a lot of support. So,
And from one of the attendee, they asked that their high school GPA was 1.7, but they have improved now at community college. So would that GPA negatively affect their chances?
yeah, your community college record will be the focus. If you graduated with that 1.7 from high school, you've got your high school degree. But that's a good example of a kid who absolutely has to have the full 2 years in community college, and the grades are going to matter significantly. But we're not going to fall back on the high school. Sometimes there's a really good reason for that, and sometimes it's the years between high school and the college experience. There are a lot of factors to take into account, so we look at all that.
Somebody wanted to know if they should ask the high school teacher to write them their letter of recommendation.
Oh, I'd prefer to have it from the courses they're taking, now. Although if that were a case where it was a first year transfer, remember I told you I wasn't very excited about that. But if it's a first year transfer and they had an incredible teacher the year previously in high school, they could submit that. But I think really they should focus on developing those communications and experiences with their college level faculty member. Now, again, that high school recommender could be the third recommendation. That's the supplemental recommendation, and that would be fine.
Some people are asking about programs that they've taken, like certificate programs, that are those transferable or not transferable?
Yeah, that's if you're taking a vocational sequence of courses, or your craft, or you're working towards certification in a skill, those will not transfer, and they're not really applicable. So if you have a mix of coursework, we're looking only at those that would meet our expectations as it relates to academic courses, to be considered as transferable in some way, or to meet breadth requirements. But certificate courses that doesn't fly. Now we can see it. We see sometimes, people have been out of school, they've done that, but then they came back in or in the community colleges, and that's great, and that's where we focus our attention. It's not that we disparage what they did before, but that might have led to a period of years where that's what the kind of work they were engaged in, and that's fine. But we just don't transfer that work academically.
For students with a W on their transcript at community college, so does it look bad on the transcript? Because some of them have to drop classes because of health issues.
Yeah, that's what we'd like to know. I withdrew them, of course, because of this. And we'd like some explanation, because the W by itself does scream at you. So the first thing you ask is, I wonder why they withdrew from the course, or if there's a series of W's, just tell us what the issue was, because that'll matter. And often it could be health, it could be a lot of things.
All righty. Well, we could keep you here till
No, you can't.
10 o'clock at night. But we have another session actually at 5 o'clock.
Oh,
so
who's the next one? I'm so cute. That's
it's the Associate Dean of Student Affairs and Admission at Cornell Medical School.
fantastic. Well, that's great. Well, I'm giving your all of the participants you get the gold star for me. That's a lot of talking
Yes,
heads.
and they could take a quiz when we post it in a few hours, and they could even get a certificate if they
Oh
pass.
yeah. Good luck out there. And don't call me if you need to get the answer again. I'm not available.
No, it's just the thing that you went over. It's a simple quiz.
No,
It's not that hard.
That's great. Well,
But again, Dr. Petty, Dean Shaw, thank you very much for again making yourself available on a Friday. And people are asking about, yes, we will have a panel of students on November 18th. Basically, it's literally right on the same page you registered for this. And I think we have 7 students. Some of them are veterans, some of them are parents. So we try to get a wide variety of people that so it could give you some diversity and they could answer the questions that they could only answer in terms of their experiences. But again, thank you again.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Any last
Thank you
words
so
of
much,
wisdom?
everyone. Thank you.
Just my words of wisdom are to say, just keep fighting and work hard, and then look at the options you have and then grab them and embrace them, whatever they are. So good luck.
Thank you very much.
See you later.